Welcome to the Marc Baxter Show, where empowerment is unlimited. Here we are again. You thought we were going to stop? Why should we? Life doesn't stop, so why should we? Before we get started, and you know I got a great guest for you. He's going to be enlightening, and he's going to give you a nice style that you can run with. But let me talk about my experience for a little bit. What I've realized about life is that it's cumulative. Everything counts. Everything. So my question to you is, if everything in life counts, why would you walk around conspiring to do evil to someone else, compromising someone else's integrity or their character, or try to hurt someone else? Like, it just doesn't make sense. If you know that that negativity is going to return back to your life because life is cumulative, why would you do that? This is what I do. Each day I go out into life, it's a new experience, a new opportunity. I look for opportunities in which I can be a blessing to someone else. See, it's a win-win situation. If I can create a situation in which I can help someone else in their life, that's going to promote me more than I can ever do for myself. See, the truth is this. See, prosperity is not in building up myself or building wealth up or notoriety for myself. That's selfishness. True prosperity is doing for someone else and getting that feeling of accomplishment that you get only for when you do good deeds for others. That's true prosperity. In fact, no one that I know has been more prosperous in that sense than our special guest today. So I know you're waiting. I'm anxious to introduce him. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Eric Mitchell to the Marc Baxter Show, where empowerment is unlimited. Dr. Eric Mitchell, it's a pleasure. Thanks for being a guest on the show.
My pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump right into it.
All right.
Let's tell the people what you do for a living.
Well, I do a number of things, mostly consulting as a psychologist. I work here at the Green Tree School, Center for Autism, LaSalle University. I do some teaching there, work with Penn Behavioral Health. And bottom line is I go wherever I need to go that does quality work with autistic kids and their families. I also have a private practice that keeps me busy, and on the side I also do some writing. And I have a book out called Autism and Asperger's Handbook. It's called Putting It Together.
Wow, busy man after my own self. So that's great to hear.
Thanks, man.
Let's take a trip back to your upbringing, your family.
Sure.
You know, briefly. Thinking back over your family dynamic, what impact, if any, did they have on your career choice?
Well, I think most folks that have been in the field working with autistic kids and their families, they have a personal connection. And in my family, autism runs a little bit in my family. So with having family members that are on the spectrum or have some developmental delays of some kind, you're kind of raised to feel a certain sense of compassion and responsibility to the population. You kind of use that as a family identity in some ways, and that carries with you. So when I was, whether it was from when I was growing up, friends of ours who, we were close friends with, one particular kid I remember. I wrote a chapter in a book called Playing with Hudson, and he was a kid who was a friend of our families, and but he was autistic and kind of drifting into his own world at the same time that I, as a toddler at that point, was growing into myself, and starting to learn how to navigate the world in a way that he couldn't. And I kind of saw my friend kind of disappear into his own world kind of before my eyes, and I'd sit there and I'd share toys, and he just wouldn't have any interest. He'd be in his space, and he'd kind of not engage with me at all. And I kind of remember that as one of my first memories of playing as a child, is kind of trying to figure out, why isn't he interacting? Why isn't he responding? Why can't he be like my sister? Right. Who's responding to me? And that was pretty formative. So moving through the years, when I came across kids that had those kind of developmental delays, I kind of gravitated toward them. And then volunteering as a teenager with kids with developmental delays, it's just something that kind of you got to roll with.
Absolutely. So it almost sounds that it's more than a job, it's more than a career. It's almost like a responsibility that you're taking on, which is very honorable.
Yeah, it's personal.
Wow, that's really, really unique.
Yeah.
Okay, well, looking over the stressors that go on in your life.
Yeah. So
when you're at your lowest point,
mm-hmm.
what person, place, or thing uplifts you?
Well, I mean, obviously, family is a wonderful support. My family of origin, my current family, my kids, always give me inspiration. There are some times where I've been teaching Sunday school for about 11 years now.
Oh, excellent.
And I teach the little guys. The ones that are just starting to learn what it is to be part of a community.
Mm-hmm.
And I come into the church in a way that isn't about necessarily the verses. It's not about the traditions. It's about community. Mm-hmm. First and foremost. I mean, all the other stuff is important, but it's about community. It's about a group of people that come together and support each other.
Right.
And that that at the end of the day, when things are really looking down, there's folks that, even if they don't understand where you're coming from 100% of the time, they're going to be behind you because there's a commonality there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so you gave us a caption almost to the things that pick you up, the things that are important to you, but just flat out on a daily basis, what drives you? Are you self-driven, or are you a type of person that are driven by adversity? What drives you?
I have some strange beliefs about where we're going as not strange beliefs, but beliefs that kind of I hold dear about where we're going as a people.
Okay.
And how specifically working with autistic kids, where those kids fit in the bigger picture.
I got you.
And when I take a look at the kids that I work with, when I take a look at folks in my family, when I take a look at people that I'm connected with outside of work, I think that we need to come to a better understanding about where these kids fit in.
Okay.
And as they become adults, how they are productive, and how there needs to be a mutual respect. That really hasn't been met before. We're talking about people who, in some ways, have been discriminated against on a lot of different levels.
Right.
Folks that have been misunderstood and tossed aside and institutionalized in the past, when their skills should have been recognized.
Right.
And so that's what drives me. We're talking about a history of oppression here, in some respects.
Absolutely.
And how do we rise above that?
Very, very interesting. You're giving me a different perspective on it. Just very, very deep. Okay. What don't you do well?
That's probably a longer answer than you're ready for.
Just give us one.
Let's see. What do I do well? Let's pick from the list. I don't do well when folks sell themselves short, or families sell kids short. That when people start to give up hope, I get a little bit irked about that, and sometimes I become a little bit obstinate about that.
Right.
When you say, okay, this is all we can expect out of this child, and we're just going to warehouse this child. We're just going to provides some four walls in a classroom, and we're not really going to challenge this child to meet his or her own potential. I get a little bit funky about that.
Okay.
And so my reaction to that is something that I need to learn to sometimes temper a little bit.
Absolutely. But I think the origin of it, and I think it's definitely justified, like where it comes from is a good place. In fact, that's pretty much the same reason why I started the Marc Baxter Show.
There you go.
Yeah, you have people giving up hope. You have people losing their place within the big scheme of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just one that wanted to give them a little guidance.
Absolutely.
Give them a little know-how. Give them a little experience of some things that I've experienced and that other people have experienced that are effective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty similar to why we started the Marc Baxter Show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
So moving forward, okay, so I see you have a big heart to give.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say hypothetically, you had one chance. Now, no, just one chance. You had one shot. 3 seconds left on the clock. Just one chance. You can give the ball to benefit yourself, or you'll give the ball to benefit someone else. Just one shot. No do-overs. Who you choose?
I guess I got to choose someone else. Because bottom line is, you say you got to love yourself first, and I think that's true. But I've been given a lot of advantages in life. Whether it's good education, good upbringing, solid family, all that kind of thing. I've been given a lot of privileges.
Right.
And I can't sit back here and say that I would be the same person I am today if it weren't for those privileges. So if somebody else needs a privilege, who am I to say that I can't allow that to happen? There's certain times when we have to give back in life.
Absolutely.
And whether it's, just absolute, altruism, or maybe we get something else on the backside from that, we're obligated to give out. We're obligated to be there for each other, because ultimately, who's going to be there for us? If we can't give to someone else, how can we expect that somebody's going to take care of us in our time of need?
Absolutely. I'll never, ever guess or wonder again from where your heart lies from that past answer. Because that's tremendous.
Thanks.
That's really tremendous. I'm sure the people will love that as well, the ones that are watching this and hearing this. Okay. Is it fair to say that everyone has a chance to be successful? Yeah,
I think that a friend of mine, Rob Nassif, he's a psychologist, written a couple books. He also has a son on the spectrum, autism spectrum. He says that a hard life can be a good life, and he's quoting from Proverbs. But a hard life can be a good life. So we need to take a look at what exactly is the definition of success. Is the definition of success, a picket fence and 2.3 kids or whatever it is, and a nice car on the driveway? Well, what exactly makes us successful? Really, it comes from the heart.
Right.
If you are successful in your heart, if you feel like you're fulfilled, you're happy, you're productive, you're contributing to folks on a daily basis, that's got to be success.
Almost like it varies per person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Success for Bill Gates is very different from success that I may see from some of my clients who are really struggling.
Absolutely.
But that's success. If you're a parent and you look at your child and you say, what do you want for your child? Ultimately, you want your child to be happy. You want your child to be productive. And if that is the goal, if that is success for what you want for your child, and you're able to go through and get the services and support that you need for your child to eventually grow up and transition to be a happy, productive adult, regardless of what they have in the driveway or what kind of place they're living in or whatever it may be, that's got to be a success. We can all live by that.
Absolutely. Great answer. You've mentioned autism a few times earlier on in the interview, and for those that are watching that are basically oblivious to what autism is, tell them what is autism or an autistic disorder.
At the heart of it, autism is considered a neurological difference. The way that somebody functions with autism versus somebody who functions as, quote, neurotypical, the rest of most of the rest of the world, is qualitatively different. The way that those differences play out, it's almost endless, the number of possibilities.
Okay.
You have kids who are autistic that usually take a look about three main areas. You take a look about communication delays. You take a look at socialization delays, and you take a look at stereotypical or repetitive behaviors. You know, they get stuck on certain things and do things over and over, or they have things have to be a certain way. Right. And that messes with your daily living. You can't function very well if you can't do those three things, basically. But it affects everyone differently. Okay. So you have kids and adults that are profoundly affected by autism, who you know, kind of the stereotypical kid rocking in the corner, back and forth. They're completely, you know, detached from the world. They're tantruming. They can't make sense of you know, the sensations that are coming at them, all the way to, you know, folks who are incredibly successful, maybe kind of internalized in their own life, but incredibly successful people. You know, we see kids that absolutely struggle. We see people that are movers and shakers in the world. Some of the greatest minds of all time are hypothesized to be autistic. You know, anywhere from Einstein to, you know, some people say maybe Thomas Jefferson,
and maybe Bill
Gates.
Right.
You know, you name it. The list goes on and on and on. Some of the smartest, most successful people, you know, that they're on the spectrum. And so we need to recognize strengths as well as we recognize challenges.
That's great. That gives us some insight into the actual disorder, which broaden, you know, all of our horizons on what autism really is. So how many people are affected by this disorder worldwide?
The latest statistics, which are actually 2008 statistics, they're published in 2012, but say that 1 in 88 people is now diagnosed on the spectrum, or, you know, kids that are diagnosed on the spectrum. So that's a whole lot of folks.
And that's pretty profound, because years ago I saw that statistic and it was about 1 out of every 150.
Yeah.
That's almost cut in half.
Yeah. And you know, a couple decades ago it was more like 1 or 2 in 10,000. Wow. You know, so, you know, the reasons for, I mean, everybody has a reason, you know. But, you know, bottom line is, you know, we're getting more comfortable at recognizing the signs, that autism is not the taboo word that it once was, that you know, people aren't seeing it as a curse, as a death sentence, if you will. It's not like your child's life is going to be thrown in the toilet because of this. There's hope out there. There's strength in the community, the autism community. And so people are starting to recognize the diagnosis as sometimes not even necessarily a diagnosis, sometimes a different way of seeing the world.
Wow.
You know, so I think that is changing. Certainly these kids need support. You know, it's not just, it's a difference, you know, straight up and that's it. This brings challenges. Absolutely. You know, living in the world that we do is going to bring challenges for somebody with those delays.
Absolutely. And I have to kind of dissect some of the things you said earlier about some of the challenges and some of the treatments that are in place. That's something that weighs heavy on your heart, because you want to be part of the solution. So, you know, let's say that you did have a hand in the solution. Where would you like to see autism go before you can really sit back and rest assured with confidence and say that I'm hopeful for the future of those on the autistic spectrum?
I mean, I think that we've done a pretty decent job, not a great job, but a pretty decent job at ramping up some services for the younger kids. And, you know, keeping those services going, you know, reasonably well through the you know, through their teenage years, early teenage years. And where we start to falter is the transition to adulthood, and what happens to, you know, the 7.5-fold increase in the children that are coming through the system right now over the next 10 to 15 years coming into the adult system. Right. You know, there's no way that we have the capability of sustaining those services through, you know, through adulthood. The system simply isn't capable of that right now. So really what it comes down to is changing the entire perception of what autistic people bring to the table and the challenges that they face. It's not about treating a person any longer at that point. It's about opening our own eyes to seeing autism in a different light. To see not necessarily an autistic person competing with a job, say for instance with a neurotypical person with, you know, with very different skills, It's about carving out places where folks can be successful and productive and pushing the envelope of where our society is going. I mean, we're in the technological age. We're in the information age right now. Without autistic people, there would have been no computers. You know, we would barely know that the world is round if it weren't for autistics. So what we need to do is to really redefine how we see autistic folks. There was a movie that came out, I think it was last year, 21 Jump Street, remake of the old film.
I saw that.
And one of the clips from it was, I was looking at a drawing on the board. He said, "Oh, that's so autistic." It was a slang. It was a derogatory. It was a diss toward autistic kids and people. We got to go the other direction. You know, we got to take a look at the master design. You know, the master design, the architect, the plans, the blueprints, and so on that blow everybody away. Nobody can feel. And we got to say, that's so autistic. Those are the strengths that we have to accentuate. You know, when we can do that, I think we'll be in a different world.
Absolutely, and we need more people like you gearing that movement. Finally, will we ever see a cure for autism?
You know, the word cure is a funny term. You know, it's carried a lot of baggage in the autism community. There are folks that that are convinced that we need to find a genetic marker that we can kind of switch on and off. Turns out that the genetic markers are not what we thought that they were. They're very complex. We're talking about spread over, the genetic markers for autism are spread over, over 50 genes at this point and counting. So this isn't something that we're going to cure. At the same time, we need to take a look at it in a different perspective.
Gotcha.
That, if you say, to someone who thinks differently and has a strength because of the way that they think differently, that we need to cure them, it's almost an insult.
Absolutely.
Now, there's no question that people who are more profoundly affected and that live their life, almost under constant kind of trauma because of the way that they experience the world, there's no question that we have to do something to help folks like that. But there's another segment of the population, and even those folks can be incredibly productive if given the right supports.
Right.
So I don't think that there's a need to cure autism. I think there's more of a need to embrace autism and to figure out ways that autism is going to fit within our society and that how our society is going to be changed because of autism. It already has been changed.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of recognizing and celebrating in a lot of ways what folks on the spectrum have brought to the table.
Absolutely, and as we move forward through evolution, the technological stage is where we're at, and autistic people are the ones that are more savvy in technology. Absolutely. From what we've seen thus far. So in that sense, life is moving more toward the direction of autistic people's strengths. Yeah.
There was a commercial a couple of years back with from Intel, and it said it was showing the inventor of the USB interface. Not that he's necessarily on the spectrum, but a lot of folks in Silicon Valley are. Right. And kind of coming in like a rock star. And the end of it is, our rock stars aren't your rock stars. We're talking about rock stars here. We're talking about the new rock stars. Not everyone on the spectrum is going to attain that level, but hey, how many of the rest of us can attain, the LeBron James level or the Barack Obama level? I mean, how many of us are really that successful as neurotypicals? But we need our rock stars. We need our heroes, our idols. Right. And who better to be an idol than folks like Bill Gates, like Temple Grandin, and so on and so forth. Autistic folks who are leading the way in today's society and historically. That's where I'd like to see things head.
That's pretty profound. Dr. Mitchell, we appreciate your presence. We appreciate you educating us on autism and on some of the characteristics of autism. And more so, we appreciate the good heart that you have to help others and support others that are in need. Thanks again for being a guest on the show.
Thank you.
All right. In conclusion, before we leave you, just want to give you one last thought. The way I view life is as perfection, meaning that every and anything that happens to me in life is received as perfect, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. Now let me tell you the benefits of perceiving life as such. One benefit is that I can eliminate 2 words out of my vocabulary when discussing life. One being bad, the other being mistake. Because I view life as perfection, there's no way I can have a bad day or a bad incident, and there's no way I can make a mistake. Everything is perfect. Secondly, it allows me to preserve my good energy. Because I view life as perfect, I don't worry about what coulda, shoulda, or would have happened. I don't second guess situations and say, wow, if I only would have left earlier, maybe this wouldn't have happened. If I only would have made this decision, then this could have happened. See, that's wasted energy, because at the end of the day, after you finish tormenting your mind with these thoughts that take you nowhere, you still have to handle the adversity at hand. So why even go through the negative thought process? Use that energy, preserve it, and use that energy for solutions rather than what coulda, shoulda, or would have been. Ultimately, you have to view life as this. Learn how to become a great counterpuncher. Too many of us try to take the fight to life. Now, my question to you is this. How many of us have ever taken a fight and tried to control life? How many of it have ever worked out perfectly for any of us? Exactly. 0, right? Yeah, that's my answer too. And that's everyone else's answer that try to dictate and control life. So ultimately, what you have to learn how to do is accept life for what it is, but be a sharp counterpuncher. Learn how to look at the cards you were dealt without complaining and organize them in such a way so that you can have a full house, so that you can win the game, so that you can be the best that you can be, so that you can become inspired, so that you can inspire others. Listen, people, there'll never be another day like today. There'll never be another person exactly like you. There'll never be a set of circumstances that you have to go through like what you're facing now. But just know how well you handle the circumstance is what determines the size of the blessing that follows. Be good, be love, and be somebody. You heard it here on the Marc Baxter Show, where empowerment is unlimited.